Just fans got me tuning in, waiting for the drop. Astros, Texas, Rockets, Dynamo, they coming with it. When they pull up, got the city sitting on a fitted. Straight up A-Leaf, hold it down, ain't gon' never quit it. Just fans got me tuning in, let my dogs get it. Southwest A-Leaf, Texas, throw down here and it's so infectious. We ride for the Houston Astros, Rockets, Dynamo, and them Texans.
How's it going, everybody? It's Carlos, your host of the Just Fans podcast, and I'm joined here by the one and only, the mother lover himself, Rios. How's it going?
I know it's a football show, but I'm talking about a little bit about the football across the pond. Ala Madrid, 15-time champions, and they got the best player, one of the best players in the world, Cloud9, man.
There you go. And of course, we got the one and only James Roy at James Roy NFL. Man, I've been wanting to have you on for a while. I love seeing your content. Man, tell us, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm here to talk Texans football, so it's always a great day when I'm able to do that. So.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, definitely. So we're excited, of course. A lot of new additions have happened with the Texans organization during the offseason. I guess you could say the Texans have had such a busy offseason. And, you know, now we're at that point where, okay, OTAs have happened. This week is the 3-day mandatory minicamp or whatnot. So it's now, I don't think after this week, I think you don't see them back until mid-July, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, just mid-July. For training camp. So I kind of want to shed a little bit of light on, what kind of our expectations were for fans that are seeing us for the first time and, kind of get a vibe from us or people that haven't seen your content, which I doubt because you provide some really good Texas content there, James. Nonetheless, not to kiss your butt so much, but no, you do a great job. Seriously, you do a great job. It's amazing.
Thanks.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on what is one of the moves that the Texans did during the offseason that to you has just been, this is when I knew this team is dead serious on being a contender during this season.
Well, you could look at a lot of their moves and say that, but I think the most obvious, just from understanding value and the transaction itself, is the move for Stephon Diggs. Simply, especially after they took the rest of the contract out and basically made it a 1-year rental. That's the kind of move you make when you believe that that's what pushes you to be a Super Bowl contender, is having that third true starter at wide receiver. So I mean, I'd have to say it's Diggs.
Diggs, yeah, that was yeah, definitely. I think adding him is like, okay, we're dead serious. We're set on, being contenders this season. For you, Reels, what was your biggest move?
No, I gotta agree with Diggs. You essentially have 3 number 1 wide receivers, and you saw what CJ did with guys that before the season started, they were voted as probably one of the worst NFL wide receiver corps. And then as the season progressed, that narrative changed a little bit. Like, he has Nico and Tanker. Like, you guys said they were nobody before the season started. Now look at them, like they're putting up top 10 numbers, and now you got add Diggs to that mix.
Yeah, exactly. It's like started from the bottom, now we're here sort of situation that we got going on, man. And yeah, it's exciting, and I talk about this just about every other episode, seeing where the Texans came from to now within such a year's time, really. How they were able to, a year and a half now, like how they were able to turn things around, not only culture-wise, a word that was embedded to every Texans fan here with previous management, and now when you hear that word, he who shall not be named. Yeah, he who shall not be named. Now you hear that word and you don't have PTSD based on it. Now you actually feel good because you've seen the change. You've seen how much influence D'Amico has for his players. We've been lucky enough to have guys like Kareem Jackson on our show that talk to us about, the type of leader he is. Former Texan also Quentin Dems has told us about D'Amico Ryans and the motivation that he gives these guys, how even before he started coaching, even as a player, he was spending time with guys who were pretty sure they were probably going to make the team. He was there coaching them up, even as a player. So obviously, that speaks volumes of D'Amico Ryans, and obviously, you could tell that's a natural born leader. He's leading the team into what many fans thought that it was going to be a while before we ever got to this particular situation, where we're at now, and as literally being called contenders. And at the same time, now you have Stephon Diggs, who wanted to come here as well, who agreed to it at least, and then Daniil Hunter, who I've said before in several episodes. I mean, he took a pay cut coming here because the Colts were offering him pretty decent money. So it's obvious that there's something that brewing here in Houston that players want to see. Players believe in CJ. Players believe in Nico. Excuse me, I apologize. In DeMeco's vision, and they're making
Nico's vision. Nico out there catching the ball, making it work.
Exactly. I hope we're relying on that too. Yeah, and Nico getting extended at the right time. So y'all saw big time. Like Justin Jefferson got the extension today, right? Do you remember how much it was, Rios?
It basically comes out to about $35 million a year.
Yeah, and then Jalen Waddle got last week, right? Got an extension as well, and then Nico obviously was the first one. I think they signed him at the right time because, man, those wide receiver contracts were going to get pretty heavy on us.
100%.
Big time.
Yeah. No. So James, before we dig in further on the Texans, I kind of want to get let's get a little personal with you, if we can. That's right. That's right. Now, let's talk.
What's your signs? What do you like?
Are you a Capricorn? No. Are you? How did you get into Texans content creating?
So I've always really liked talking about the Texans. You can ask anyone who's held a conversation with me since the age of 7. It's always been a huge thing of mine. And I always had a lot of trouble finding people that were also interested in the Texans. Growing up in a military family, moving around, I didn't always live in Houston. I think the hardest time was when I was in Memphis because all these Titans fans were around.
Oh,
me.
yeah.
They didn't want to talk about the Texans with me. But in 2022, the season was rough, but towards the end of the season, I was like, I'm going to start posting on Twitter about this and see, and things started gaining traction. And I noticed that my tweets were starting to be seen, and I was like, maybe people like hearing me talk about the Texans. So then from there, just whatever content I get my hands in and put out there to talk about the team. I enjoy doing it. It's a labor of love, if you will.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's the angle. What is the angle with you? Are you trying to get into like NFL stuff, or like be an insider, or what's the angle for James here?
All of that would be the dream. I'm in the Navy, and my time in the Navy is coming to an end soon. So I will be in a prime position to transition career wise. So I'm keeping my eye open for an opportunity like that, continuing to put out content and do what I can. And trying to set myself up to make that transition. It'd be great.
How did you? How was your? You said you've been a Texans fan and for a long time, and how was that? That time for you as a Texans fan before DeMeco.
Before DeMeco, like you're talking like Bill O'Brien years.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien, Jackie Stewart.
We'll say.
Yeah.
It was rough, but I honestly like I said, I'm in the Navy, and so for a lot of that time, as I was seeing the scores through an email that sent down underwater to me while I was unable to see the game. So I didn't get to feel the full force of the pain for a lot of that time. It wasn't really until 2021 when I transitioned to a short tour. They're saying they can't hear us on the stream.
Oh, really?
I hope I'm speaking loud enough. But I really kind of got to feel the full force in 21 and 22 though. I got all of that. I got to watch every second of it. It was not the most fun experience to have, but I'm an optimist. So like the way that I consume, a lot of people call it, aggregating or like putting out content that's just like meant to get clicks, but that's not what I'm about. Like I'm just honestly a really optimistic person. And so like that shows through the way that if I'm putting out something that's not optimistic about the Texans, it's probably a bad sign. Honest.
Yeah. No, for sure. Can you guys, if you guys can hear us now, please let us know in the comment section. I can hear James well, and Rios, I can hear you well. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
I can hear y'all fine.
Yeah. Okay. So that's weird. Hope we have that fixed. But regardless,
Maybe
yeah. No.
39 Stacks needs to turn up the volume on his computer. No, I'm just-
Is that again? Right. No.
Right. It's funny you mentioned it, James, because like when me and Carlos first started doing it back in 2022, when the team was safe to say not very good, so it was very hard to find positives. But we tried our best to find some positives, but it was not easy at all.
Yeah. No. It was tough. But hey, you know what? You can't have the good times without the bad times. So that I think
We could see a few sparkles here and there with Pierce's rookie season. Stigley had some he had some times when he showed a little bit like there's pieces there. You just gotta find the right coach and then a real quarterback, and they did both in one offseason.
so. Let's. I'm glad you brought up Damian Pierce there, Rios, because that's one of the topics that I wanted to talk about now that we've gotten to know James a little bit. So James, we saw the regression of Damian Pierce this past season. And you can put it on a lot of things, not just Damian. Sometimes maybe the blocking wasn't as good for him, for him to find the holes, and maybe obviously Damian Pierce probably not used to this particular type of offense. So there were some interviews with him recently that he kind of he admitted no, not this being a shock to him, this new type of offense, and that he's working on it. He sounds optimistic. He said that he basically sees this past season as one of his best seasons mentally because he's able to step back and look at it a little differently for a particular offense that he's not used to. I picked up a little bit of almost like it almost sounds like when you're trying to convince yourself about something. And so I gather that, but I'm obviously not one to judge. But what do you see Damian Pierce? Before I ask you this question, D'Amico Ryans also said that they were trying to do a 1-2 punch with Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce, and I told the guys on one of our episodes I felt like they're trying to do the whole Aaron Foster Ben Tate thing over again or similar to that. What are your thoughts on Damian Pierce, or maybe even your expectations on Damian Pierce this season?
I think that a lot of what dragged him down in the eyes of Texans fans because of what happened this past season was the expectations relative to his rookie season. Combined with like it has been said, the scheme fit, the offensive scheme the Texans run is very quarterback friendly, but as a running back, there's a type for it. And Damian Pierce is not exactly that type, but it can be picked up. It just takes time. So, I think that based on the way that D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio have talked about it, they definitely see him as a prominent role. And I think that with the lessened expectations and sort of settling into an RB2 role where that's what's expected of him, I think you'll find a lot of people pleasantly surprised with how Damian Pierce performs this season. I do think there's an exciting prospect behind him in Jawar Jordan. So if that doesn't work out, I still think we'll see Jawar Jordan either way, but maybe we'll see more of him. But I don't think if the Texans didn't believe that Damian Pierce was going to pick it up, then they would have traded him. There was a sweet spot before the draft where you could sell Damian Pierce on his potential, and you could just kind of convince other teams that he just wasn't a scheme fit. The Cowboys probably would have been buyers,
right?
And so ship has sailed. He's going to play out the last year of his contract in a Houston uniform, and so you better make the best of it.
Yeah. Rios, your thoughts on Damian Pierce?
So I mentioned in the previous episode, my expectations aren't very high for him. I was telling people, don't be surprised if Jawar Jordan is running back 2 week 1. I think it's really going to come down to who shines more in training camp and in preseason. And if he, picks up the scheme a lot faster than Pierce does, and he, excels in his, whenever he gets a chance, you got to go with the hot hand and a run heavy scheme like this. You can't just try to force feed like they did at the beginning of the season. And we saw what happened when they tried to force the ball Pierce. It just was not working.
Yeah. Another thing that concerned me about Pierce, and I talked about it also in some episodes, I even though like in 2022, I think he won an award for like the best. I want to say I can't remember the name of the award.
Is it Angry Run?
Angry Run.
Award?
Thank you, Angry Run. Yeah,
Yeah.
Angry Run. And I don't know, seeing that, we thinking, oh, we got a future back now, you know, and we haven't had one since Arian Foster, really. And so it's almost like, okay, we were excited, and then obviously this season, you know, the Texans were successful. Obviously, not with not with Damian Pierce, I'd like to say, but you know, with Devin Singletary at the helm, I thought we were more successful. So it was kind of disappointing seeing his drop, obviously, but you know, it's a different offense. I guess came as a shock to him or whatnot. But I don't know. I do want Damian Pierce to succeed in this particular offense. I do think that, you know, they're replicating a lot of what I remember seeing with with Arian Foster and Ben Tate when they used to throw the ball, like, and that's more offensive weapons for CJ Stroud. You know, it's you have
100%.
another receiving weapon for CJ as opposed to the already receivers that he's got with Nico Tank and Stephon Diggs, and not including John Mechie, which we're expecting to see some this year out of him as well. Xavier Hutchinson, the Jonkett twins, you name it. You know, we got a plethora. There we go. I'm using the word again, Rios. The plethora of receivers.
The first big word you learn. He uses any chance he gets.
Plethora. That's the big word.
Plethora.
One more thing on the running back room. Now that you're making comparisons, drawing back, you know, it could be. Now, it's not a direct comparison, but if we remember, right before Arian Foster emerged as an undrafted rookie, you know, we had Steve Slayton, who had that 1,000-yard season, looked really good, and then kind of fell off. I know that last season probably would have been the season to find that replacement running back, but looking at I believe his name is Britton Robinson. Who's the undrafted running back that they picked up?
I think that's his name.
I think so. It has to do with the Great Britain in some way. But maybe be on the lookout for him. Yeah. I'm not tracking him based off I think that the Texans may carry 4 running backs, and so Jawar Jordan and Dario Bungawale round out that room, in my opinion. But I always got to be on the lookout.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I just hope it works out, and again, we get to see some Ben Tate, Arian Foster like type of offense over there. That'd be amazing to see again.
I don't want to see Steve Slayton 2.0 happen again.
I do not. Yeah, I know. Hold your breath on that one, Chris. Yeah.
I mean, because 1,000-yard runner, then he's returning kicks the following season.
And it happened with Damian Pierce. He was returning kicks this season too. The comparisons to Steve Slayton are just incredible.
I don't want it. I want Damian Pierce. I wish him all the best. He's a great guy. I want to see him, especially with the accountability he's taken for like what's happened in this past season and being transparent about it. Like, I want to see nothing but the best for Damian.
And that's the kind of guy you would want in a locker room. You know, that's the kind of guy that you would want in a locker room. So
a culture fit. You know, not everyone's fit to be a Texan. Not everyone's cut out for it. That's what Will Anderson said.
Exactly.
You got to look at Will. That's what you got to do when you're looking for the culture in that Texans locker room.
That's what's up. Exactly.
Yeah, because he seems like a team first guy. That's what you need. You want guys that, hey, today's not my day, but whatever the team needs, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And it seems like the mentality he's approaching it with this upcoming training camp. So, like I said, we wish him the best. My expectations aren't super high, but hopefully he proves me wrong.
Yeah. That's for the best, that your expectations are low, because that means they're easier to meet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when they don't succeed, you're like, I knew it. I knew it. Yeah. All right. So I feel like we talked about our running backs. I want to talk about now. Okay, CJ. No, let's leave CJ to the end. That's our star. No. Let's talk about the tight ends here. Okay. You got Dalton Schultz. You have Brevin Jordan. You have oncomer Kate Stover. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Quentin. What's his name?
TQ.
Huh? Yeah.
TQ. Yeah. Quintanario.
Yeah. Quintanario. Yeah. I can't pronounce his name. So we have a set of tight ends, and Dalton Schultz obviously is your number one guy. But now with Kate Stover coming in, man, I feel like, after seeing some of his film in college, I know that with CJ Stroud, some of the yardage that they had, it wasn't as big as it wasn't like nothing to really brag about, but I mean, there were still some, yardage. I think it was like 300, 400, some around there that he had with CJ that one year. That he was a tight end with CJ Stroud in Ohio State. But now you have him come over to the Texans, and some of his clips from last season, his every time he catched the ball, like he would just take off, and it was like seeing Gronkowski out there trying to, trying to get him out of, trying to get him down or whatnot. Strong guy. What'd you call it?
Farmer Gronk.
Farmer Gronk. Farmer Gronk. And so, and they even gave him 87. They even gave him 87. So
you see a man farming on draft day. Hall of Famer. Get the gold jacket ready.
There he is.
And so, like, now you got Case Stover, and of course, out of college, you hear what's soft for him, and one of the things is the poor blocking, right? And I think they even asked him about that, and he kind of got a little bit in his feelings, which is okay because hey, it could set a little fire under him. And
someone attacks you, you defend yourself. It makes sense,
right? Exactly. And so I think, now I'm not saying this is who he's going to be, but there's a lot of similarities. I told the guys last week to George Kittle in that aspect. Remember, George Kittle out of college came out as a poor blocker or whatnot. That was one thing that was said about him, but same thing with Stover. But a lot of like their play styles is kind of similar. The catch at the catch run.
The run after catch, yeah.
Yeah,
very
it's
similar.
Incredible. So I could see Kate Stover eventually taking over. Maybe, heck, you never know. Maybe he balls out next year, or maybe after Dalton Schultz's contract, that could be your number one tight end. But I think he fits in perfectly with this system. And the Texans, they're not known for their tight ends. Like the last time we had any tight ends that really shed some light, Owen Daniels and
OD.
Garrett Graham, like Ryan Griffin, Fedorowicz, like it's always like, oh yeah,
we all know them, but no one outside of the Texans fan base knows them.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe some Jets fans know Garrett Graham,
Yeah, and then maybe
Griffin.
Yeah, Ryan Griffin. And so aside from that, it's like, and then some Broncos fans will know Owen Daniels, and some Ravens fans too, but.
Super Bowl champion Owen Daniels.
So Super Bowl
champion. Put some respect on his name.
Yeah. And so, like, aside from that, we're not known for that. But dude, wouldn't it be awesome if it worked out? If he were like a George Kittle, wouldn't it be awesome having all that talent and a George Kittle along the lines of that? What are you,
Gronk, George Kittle, whatever tight end you want to name that's really good right now? I'd love to have that. That'd be great.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Kate Stover?
I think that. From his perspective, right, at best he's tight end too, obviously. I realistically, it's going to be tough because it seems like the Texans really like Brevin Jordan. And to speak to your point about run blocking, it's interesting that they took Cade Stover. It's definitely a CJ Stroud has chemistry with this guy pick because at tight end, if you're looking at what the Texans needed to do in the draft, it was probably find a better blocking tight end. There's a lot of criticism of Dalton Schultz as a blocker. Brevin Jordan is known as a prospect throughout his time coming up the pipeline as a guy who's more of a receiving tight end than anything else. And so adding another more receiving oriented tight end is an interesting decision. I can't say that whatever they got from getting a different tight end in the draft would have significantly affected things. They got a guy who's definitely going to see some time on the field this season. I think worst case for him is that he sits behind Brevin and Dalton, and then at the end of this season, maybe Brevin walks. You still got Dalton. He steps into tight end 2, and you've got a tight end 2 who has an immense amount of chemistry with CJ Stroud, who has been in the system for a year and is ready to play his best ball. So I don't see a bad outcome with Cade Stover. I think it's a great pick, and I'm glad that they did it.
Yeah, 100%. Rios, what's your take on Cade Stover, bud?
Yeah, I think when they interviewed him about the run block, I think he's going to really make it a point and this is something to work on, and you'll probably see a lot of it, the improvement in training camp. And I see him easily being tight end number 2 because they like Brevin Jordan, but he's, besides not being a great run blocker, he's also super consistent. Like there are times I forget he's out there.
Yeah. The Ravens game was one of those where, like, the previous game against the Browns, I was like, all right, Brevin, good, awesome. Sorry, my dogs are going off. I was like, okay, great. I see I see some highlights of Brevin Jordan. Awesome. And then the following week you go against the Ravens and what happens? It's like, wait, did Brevin Jordan forget to come on the to go to play today? What's going on? We don't know what happened.
Check the bus.
Check the bus. It's like what happened? What happened? What happened? And he was in very, I guess, the consistency aspect. It's like you're here one day, you're not here the other day. And I think
when you have to be consistent in this offense, there's so many weapons now. Like last year, disappearing was like huge because he was meant to be the only guy. But now there's 2 tight ends on that roster that can play, that are capable of playing better than him. So now they're lighting that fire under him. Like, hey, show up
or really not show up at all, sort of a situation. Because it's like, you already got these guys that are, that is basically what fit in this particular type of offense. So, I think, they're gonna definitely is gonna lit up a little fire under Brevin Jordan. So, but nonetheless, I mean, that's another weapon for CJ. That's another weapon. It's gonna be hard enough to get to cover all 3 receivers that you have out there. And here you got Cade Stover and you got Dalton Schultz here. So definitely your safety blankets, definitely the guys that you're going to go to. If somehow any corners happen to, cover all of the receivers that the Texans have, you have plenty of options. It's just another weapon in CJ Stroud's arsenal, So that works. That works for me. All right, moving on to, let's see, we got running backs, we got tight ends. Let's go to wide receivers. All right, I know this one's a crazy one. So,
this is a tough
wide receivers. I've never heard of them. Yeah,
there's a couple.
What's
guys.
there to talk about? It's just a wide receiver.
It's just Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. Yeah, nothing to brag about. The wide receiving core probably one of the more dominant on paper that the Texans have ever had. There was a comparison that was thrown out on Twitter, I believe, and
comparing the 2019 offense to this
skill players, versus the 2024. So in 2019, the Texans offense looked like this. It was Deshaun Watson, Carlos Hyde, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, and Darren Fells as tight end. Okay, that was 2019 compared to the 2024 version. CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and finally Dalton Schultz. I mean, is there even much of a comparison there, fellas?
What are those screenshots from Madden where it's like the user has left the match? Like that's what teams are gonna wish they could do after the 5th CJ Stroud touchdown pass to insert weapon here. Like it's just gonna be I can't. I mean, so the Texans' schedule got tougher based off of strength of schedule, which, depending on who you ask, is the PFF of statistics, because it either confirms what's there or it doesn't, and you have to really know ball to use it. But I would say, based off what I know, there are very few teams that were good last year that are on that schedule that are teams that I would say are at risk of maybe not posing a threat to the Texans. One of those being the Dolphins, depending on how things shake out. I think they could be good, could be bad, but the Texans have a tough schedule, but they got a lot better as a team. So, I mean, I think that the teams are going to struggle to bring their A game on defense against this team. The receiving core is just unreal talented.
Oh, it's 100%. Rios, what do you think about?
I mean, where to begin? Like, just from a defensive perspective, like, who do you double? Like, do you put your best corner on Stephon, or do you put him on Nico? Do you put him on Tank Dell? And then do you really want to put a safety on Dalton Schultz or Cade Stover or a linebacker? Like, they have so many options. And then the running backs, because Joe Mixon's a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. Jawad Jordan's pretty good at catching passes. Dameon Pierce, it remains to be seen on his abilities as a pass catcher. Just left a lot to be desired the last couple of seasons. But again, with all those different options, like, how do you game plan for that?
Yeah, it's got to be tough. Like, I remember a time when coaches had to game plan for J.J. Watt, on defense, specifically for him. Now, you're looking at in the offensive side of the ball for the Texans, like, yeah, who do you plan for now? Like, regardless, there's going to be an opening. There's going to be somebody open for CJ Stroud, and in previous versions of this Texans, like you always saw, even dating back with Andre Johnson, if Andre wasn't open, who was open? If you
Kevin Walter was open.
Kevin
what
Walter,
are we doing?
Great
Kevin
minds.
Daniels was open. What are we doing? This revisionist history. I feel like there wasn't other weapons on the team. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Bootleg to Owen Daniels.
Yeah. Super Bowl champion. Owen Daniels.
Super Bowl
champion.
Super Bowl champion. And so, like, now it's like there's always going to be a weapon open for CJ Stroud. And based on last season, how accurate he threw the ball, he's going to get it. He's going to get that whoever's open, no matter where they are. And so for sure, I don't know. That's what makes him dangerous. It's going to make him dangerous. There's going to be somebody open, and that's something to look forward to for sure.
100%.
So now what I want to do is, like, with the receivers. Sorry, if you were to see who was wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and wide receiver 3, who would you say would be wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 for you, James?
Oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. And I've said this 100 times. I'll say I love saying this because the easy answer with the Texans is to go, oh, it's 1A, 1B, 1C. But the correct answer, just based off what we can use to differentiate them, because I think they're all capable of playing wide receiver 1 for several teams in this league. And it's not a slight to any of them to rank them this way on the depth chart. But wide receiver 1 is going to be Nico Collins, wide receiver 2, Stephon Diggs, and wide receiver 3, Tank Dell. And I know Tank Dell has said recently he looks at that and uses it as fuel. So if me saying that fuels Tank Dell having a great season, then yeah, Tank Dell wide receiver 3, do something about it. I don't know. Like I love Tank Dell. I think he's great. And like I said, he could be wide receiver 1 on several teams in this league, but he's on the Texans. And so, yeah.
So I'm going to go on this one, Rios, because I know what your take was based on one of our shows that we did. So I agree with you 100% on Nico Collins being number 1. I do. This one was tough for me to say because if it felt, when you're saying something and it's just like, wait, am I stupid for saying that? It's just I have plenty of those. I was just like, am I really not ranking Stephon Diggs as high as I need to be? It's almost like you get to that point, which isn't a big problem to have. In the big picture, is not a big problem to have. So I'm thinking to myself, man, who do I? So I have the same as you, except I actually chose Tank as number 2 with Stephon as number 3. And I'm like, I sound stupid when I say that, but logically,
I'm not going to be the one to disagree with you on that. So,
and that's how I see it. That's how I saw it. It was.
I don't blame you for it. I mean, Tank Dell is really good.
He is.
The best I can give you on that is I might do like a 2A, 2B thing, but I can't reasonably bring myself to say without seeing anything this season that Stephon Diggs is wide receiver 3. That's just tough to say.
Exactly.
Wow.
Rios, you had an interesting take on yours, and please let us know.
So mine is completely different than both of y'all's. So last season when both Tank Dell and Nico Collins played together, Tank was wide receiver 1. Like he outplayed him every time they played together. It wasn't until Tank went down that Nico really started to put up big numbers. And with the addition of Stephon Diggs, people can call me crazy. I'm cool with it, but I got Tank as number 1. Tank Dell's wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, Nico Collins. And I know this sounds fucking insane saying Stephon Diggs is wide receiver 3, but I think all 3 guys go over 1,000 yards, but like I can see all 3 basically like under 1,100 yards each. Like I think CJ is going to distribute the ball pretty evenly. There's no one's going to go hungry in this offense.
I think that we could easily see for the first time in a while a 3 wide receiver set with 1,000 yards each. It's been a minute. Yeah. It's happened before, and I think this is a group that can do that. I will say if at the end of the season we confirm through performance that Stephon Diggs is wide receiver 3. I don't know how healthy that is. And it's something you mentioned earlier with the change in the term culture for this team.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the move to acquire Stephon Diggs, you have to believe that this team saw Diggs and knows how people feel about him and said, well, our culture is like stronger than whatever Stephon Diggs is. And so We'll bring him in, and the culture will keep him in check. And we're really going to see if that culture can keep Stephon Diggs in check if he's producing at a wide receiver 3 level on that team. And it's not over 1,000 yards.
Right. And you bring up a good point, because I think in different podcasts that we've been, one of the first few questions that we get is, how do you guys feel about Stephon Diggs, knowing he's like brings
diva, quote unquote.
Diva. And I was like, oh, I understand that. I understand the baggage that he comes with, and I always bring kind of like what you said, the culture here has literally drastically changed, and because it's so new,
a complete 180 basically.
Complete 180 because it's so new. I highly doubt that the Texans can go back and allow that to happen, knowing that they just came out of a situation like what they did, knowing what it could be, and to allow something like this to happen, it wouldn't keep the locker room in change if you just kind of let them do what you want. And there's also go ahead, sorry.
Oh, here's what I'll tell you about that. Like, I have no concern about Diggs, mainly because Nick Caserio doesn't. So, like, I've learned that that's usually not something to go against. But the other thing is that worst case scenario, Diggs is a problem. If we look at the timeline of him being a problem at each of his previous teams, 1 year is not long enough for it to be a big enough problem to affect the Texans' ability to perform. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's another point too. Is like they have him as a loan, essentially, like for a year. Yeah. So it's like your tryout year. You do a great job, you get paid. And then I think where I bring up Nico's contract here comes into play, because they saw that they'll be able to pay guys. They can pay guys, and the Texans cap isn't bad at all next season. In fact, it's actually pretty decent. So they have money, they have cap space to give Nico, but it's just, I think that's the incentive, right? You have the incentive to grow for a team that wants you, and then B, you're on a team that's not just any team. You're not just chasing the bag. You're on a team that's legitimately considered a contender. So best of both worlds on that one.
Yeah, because they showed because Nico's only had one good season, and they gave him the bag. So if I'm Diggs, hey, if I perform well, I can bring that to the negotiating table. Hey,
you sound muffled. I'm sorry, but you sound kind of muffled. Was I the only one hearing that, or?
What's up?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You sound a little muffled.
I can hear you, just a little muffled.
Yeah, a little muffled, dude. Weird.
How about now?
I don't know. Maybe there's something in the way of your mic, but it's better now.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So I was saying basically, with the Nico contract, they showed hey, you perform, we'll pay you. So that's even more incentive to go out there and ball out.
Yeah. What's up, Albert? Thanks for joining us, bud. Appreciate you. Shout out to you.
What's up?
What's up, man? Yeah. I'm not too concerned about that either. Like James said, he hasn't really if you look at his track record, he wouldn't have been here long enough to really justify that, so, and then the incentives are all there in the type of culture. So I don't think all those things together, I don't think will have Stephon Diggs, be the way he is. I think the biggest problem he has right now with Houston is knowing where to get off on the next in the freeway, because he's always
right.
That's the only thing he's got. Somebody said on Twitter, he hasn't showed up to OTAs because he hasn't found the exit.
Right. You missed the exit, you end up in Pasadena.
Yes, exactly. You have to take the correct exit. If not, 30 minutes later, that's your next one. If you ever
rumor has it he's circling the 610 loop to this day.
Yeah, exactly. Right now.
Right. Which one's the exit?
Which one is that? I don't know.
Kuyenthal?
Why does the direction keep changing? North, south, east, west? Where am I going?
No, it's insane. All right, so we got, so we kind of ranked our receivers, and again, crazy to put Stephon there, and it's crazy to rank him, but yeah, I agree. 1,000. It feels like this group could reach the 1,000 yards for sure. Okay.
I did call Tank Dell being wide receiver 1 before the season started. He was on pace for that until he got hurt.
Yeah, I think he was at 700 something yards and a little bit over 700 before he got hurt, and he was on pace for it.
I mean, I'll tell you this, before Tank Dell was hurt, I was still calling Nico Collins wide receiver 1. I do think Nico definitely got that last push to confirm it in my eyes at the end of the season without Tank there. And that's to say, it might be controversial depending on who you ask, but right. I think the biggest beneficiary of the Tank Dell injury was Nico Collins, because without Tank Dell there, CJ and Nico really had to work on their chemistry, and I think that's what brought out the 1,400-yard receiver that we got in the end. But I mean, I was not, and it's because of build, right? Like in my eyes, Tank Dell could be the wide receiver one in terms of production on any team, but based off of build, which is mostly what I'd go on, a true wide receiver one is not something Tank Dell would be per position, if you will, but he could be wide receiver one production wise, easy on a lot of teams.
And I think also it's going to have to do with, like we said, how can you consider like you said right now, James, production wise, or maybe one guy's going to have more yardage, maybe another guy's going to have more touchdowns than the other one. Maybe depends on how you use them as well. I think Reels, you brought up a point in one of our episodes saying that they might use Tank Dell, with touchdowns in the red zone, right? Is that what we said?
Yeah, because you're right. He's a big red zone threat, which is crazy to say because he's the smallest guy on the field. But I saw at the University of Houston, like this guy would just disappear and out of nowhere, touchdown. Yeah. Like he's just his ability to separate is just at an elite level. It's kind of hard to guard in the end zone.
Yeah, so you could see one receiver having more touchdowns than the other based off, again, depending on the position that they put him on. Maybe one guy's going to have more yardage than the other. Stuff like that, I guess. A situational ball, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, based on that. And it depends how you rank them in that point. Maybe it could be a 1A, 1B situation and things like that based on, well, this guy has more yardage. Yeah, but this guy has more touchdowns. You know what I mean? And in that type of scenario. And so,
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so CJ. I want to talk about CJ now. Unless anybody wants to add any more about receivers.
I reckon we'll probably touch on him when we're talking about CJ.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll go.
Actually, I do have a question for James. So we already know what the first three receivers are. Who do you see being the fourth receiver on this team?
Man, I'll give you 4 through 6 right now. So I've gone in depth on that, and some people might call me the president of the John Mechie fan club based off how much I've talked about him. But based off current roster construction, what I know about each receiver, I'd say that number 4 is Noah Brown, number 5 is Mechie, and then 6 really depends on if the Texans decide to carry Robert Woods past the preseason and into the regular season, because Woods is wide receiver 6 if he's on the roster, but if the Texans deem it that his role is very dependent on veteran presence and at times early on last season, I felt like he was filling the safety blanket role better than Dalton Schultz was while Schultz was adjusting. But when you remove that, what do you have in him? And is that something you need on this roster? But if it's not him, I'd say 6 is Xavier Hutchinson. And then we'd probably carry Benny Skoranek in that 7 role. And his versatility, I think, assures him more roster security than people would think.
Yeah. Also the special teams ability, I think, with like what he did with the Rams as well. So that,
especially with the rule changes, I can see them cutting Robert Woods because he can't really play special teams.
Yeah.
Didn't he return a bit? I thought he did some punt return.
Yeah, he returned a couple of punts, but I don't think I want him out there trying to make tackles on kickoffs.
No, I was scared too when I saw him. I was like, oh god, this is not going to end well. Yeah.
You think they put Ogunbowale out there to kick off?
Yeah. I actually brought that up on one of our other episodes. I was like, he's going to be your kick because you don't want Kyrie Fairbairn out there trying to make a tackle or taking unnecessary hits.
After that, we found out how much we missed Kyrie Fairbairn last season.
Yeah.
Dude, he's
big time.
Exactly. After that, I was like, Kyrie. We could have got it. We could have literally had another game, right? Was it the Jaguars game? I can't remember. There was
Jaguars.
One game.
It was the Jaguars game.
No, yeah, I was sitting in section 116 right behind the uprights when that one. I was like, oh, I'll tell you, as disappointing as it is to watch your kicker miss a kick like that on TV, it's even more disappointing watching because you're like, oh look, it looks like it could. No, bing, like
yeah. I was there and I was in a group of next to a group of Jaguars fans.
You probably didn't hear the end of it.
I did not. I just sat there dejected, like, man, where's Kaimi? Come back, please.
Back. How can I donate a calf or whatever it was? Yeah.
Basically.
For sure.
No, yeah, definitely. We definitely did figure out how important of an asset Kaimi Fairbairn was to the Texans. Didn't they sign him? They signed him, right? At the
they signed him to an extension. He's like the 5th highest paid kicker in the league right now.
He deserves it. He deserves it.
Well, like I said, don't be surprised if a lot of these kickers they don't do kickoffs anymore for that very reason because they're opening themselves up to a lot more punishment, and these aren't the biggest guys.
What's wild is that discussion happened around the time. So I think the Chiefs kicked that off. And so it was funny because a lot of people took that discussion as them minimizing Harrison Butker's role because of the way he's spoken outside of football.
Minimizing Butker's role.
And so everyone's like, oh, are they getting ready to cut him? And it's like, no, it's literally just what every other team is considering doing. So I thought it was wild.
Being tomorrow, because they won Super Bowls because of their kicker. Like, come on, man. Like, you can't put someone that important out there unnecessarily, especially on a kickoff. Like, come on. Do you really want your?
I'm admiring how our hats look over here, James. Like, you got the deep steel blue, and I'm over here with the battle red edition of it. Yeah.
And it's nice because I'm wearing the battle red jersey, and you're wearing the deep steel blue jersey. It's like the contrast is there.
Oh, it's all there, man. Yeah, Rio, celebrate Europe's win over there. Just kidding.
I am.
I will. Yeah.
Very
Maybe one day the Texans will play in Madrid, and then you can go on a real trip to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Nice. Like I did that there.
See what I did there?
You know it's going to happen eventually since they're doing the Brazil one. That one's a shocker to me. The Brazil one, I was like, oh, that jet lag is going to kill them.
You heard they got Australia in the works.
Jeez.
That jet lag is really going to kill you.
Yeah.
That's you're crossing the international date line. You're going to a whole different day.
Yeah. That's going to be insane.
They're going to have to play on Saturday because it'll be Sunday over here, or however it works.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's insane. All right, let's talk a little bit about CJ Stroud here. Okay, as I'm talking about CJ, I'm in no way. I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there so I don't get any fan hate. In no way am I talking or giving any slander to CJ. I'm just pointing out something that should be on the back of some of our minds here. Okay. Now, of course, we've added all the the Texans have added all the weapons to CJ Stroud and all that. And of course, with any second year, there is a possibility of some regression based on film.
Boo. No, I'm just kidding.
Boo, hater. Do you
shut your mouth?
You know what you're talking about. Do you see any sort of regression that may happen with CJ, or do you have any concern regarding that at all?
I mean, every trend that we have for recent, elite level first year players at quarterback, I'm being careful with my phrasing here. CJ's rookie season he played it at an elite level, and most of those players get better in the second year. And I believe Joe Burrow in his second year, was that when they went? I guess it depends on how you count the injury. I'm lost on when that happened. That timeline.
So it happened in his rookie season, and then the following season they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and so with that, I think that's one thing that lends merit to the Super Bowl chatter. I will say this: I think that I'm fine with a lot of people thinking that, because if that's how the league is thinking, they're like, oh, CJ's just a trend and he's going to fall off and his second season's going to be less good. Then I didn't think it was possible for the Texans to surprise anyone this season. But if that's what you're thinking about CJ Stroud, you're going to be caught off guard when you go into a matchup with the Texans.
And that's what he drives on. Remember when they counted him out of the I think it was not Stephen A. I'm sorry, in the Pat McAfee show. Actually, Stephen A. was the one that said it. My fault. Where they kind of said, Joe. This is weird to say out loud. Also, Joe Flacco is the guy to look out for in the AFC at that time.
I remember that clip. That's wild.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not a Browns fan. Got your number. He's like, oh well, they got we'll bet or whatever. Like, we'll see. And he ended up.
And I told him, no. They're like, yeah, you guys have no chance against Cleveland.
Oh, we got no chance. Yeah.
We got no chance.
All right.
Let's make CJ, and he's gonna prove you wrong. And we've seen that as a trend. And that's consistency, Brevin Jordan. That's consistency right there. And he proves people wrong. And I think he drives on it. Rios, do you think there's any regression this year at all based on second year film, or do you think, what, not at all? He only gets better from here.
I think it's one of those things that he was say, for example, he was good because of the people, the receivers that he had, them making him better than, what he really is. I would say, yeah, maybe we see regression, but it was the other way around. It was him elevating his group of receivers. And I don't see any type of I don't foresee any type of regression. Obviously, there's more game film on him. Teams are going to, be gunning for him now. But I don't because his game is based on ball placement, and being cautious with the ball. He doesn't fumble a lot, doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, and with having an even better receiving core and an actual running game now, like it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely we see a regression. I expect even better numbers this season than last year.
If there's a quarterback to be watching for, it's Josh Allen. And this is a discussion I've been planting this in the world. I'm letting the seed grow of this discussion, which is that, Josh Allen, pretty good, right? Some would say that you're crazy if you don't rank him ahead of CJ Stroud as a quarterback based off last season. Mm-hmm. The real thing to observe there is Josh Allen an excellent quarterback, or was he the beneficiary of Stephon Diggs? Is that what made him an elite quarterback, was having an elite receiver to throw to, or is Josh Allen that guy? And we're going to find that out this season. And it'll also speak volumes as to how Stephon Diggs performs in Houston. There's a lot going on to me between those two, and that's something I'm going to be monitoring throughout the season, is Josh Allen without Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs and whether or not he continues to be great without Josh Allen.
There you go.
That's a good point.
It is.
I guess it brings me to similarities between how people view Brock Purdy on the 49ers. They view him, as like a top 10 quarterback. I'm like, you got the Avengers on offense. It kind of helps.
Who are you talking to about Brock Purdy? All I hear is game manager. That's all I heard anyone say.
49ers fans. I think he's a little bit of a step above a game manager, but like it definitely helps having Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle and Christian McCaffrey on the roster.
I think we'll really see him tested if one of the – so the rumor is that Ayuk or Debo could end up going to Pittsburgh, or at least leaving the 49ers. And if he loses one of those guys, I think we're going to see it tested whether or not he's a system quarterback, a game manager, whatever term you want to throw at him to degrade him, or if he's the real deal.
Yeah, because I wouldn't call him a game. I think he's a step above that, but like top 10 quarterback. No, got to see how he does.
When I didn't put him ahead of CJ Stroud on the quarterback ranking list. Oh well.
Yeah, exactly. So to put my input on this one, I think I also don't see a step down from CJ this season. Regression. In Rios, you kind of hit the nail on the head for me on that one. If he was if you would have definitely seen a struggle, you would have seen it last year. Yes, you had Nico. Yes, you had Tank, but then you ended up losing Tank, and then you had Robert Woods. You had how do you call it? Drawing a blank on 85 right now. I'm sorry.
Noah Brown.
Thank you. You had Noah Brown, who actually, when you look back at his stats last season, they weren't bad at all. Like, he was utilized more with this past season with the Texans that he did with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. And so it was.
If he had stayed healthy, he easily would have cracked 900 yards.
Yeah.
Story of his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Unfortunately.
And so I think, like I said, you hit the nail on the head. I think he made his receivers better than what they actually were, even after Tank Dell's injury. And you would have probably seen a significant downfall on CJ, which tells you, going back to the Brock Purdy argument there, he's obviously on a different level here. CJ Stroud's on a different level. So you would have seen a huge struggle, but, day in and day out, he still put up a fight. He was still him. He was still that, he had that dog in him, if you want to go to that.
DAWG dog.
DAWG and exclamation marks after that. And so so I don't see a regression on him. I think he gets better. I think he elevates his game. And of course, you see like nothing but he's working with the guys right now. He didn't, he's trying to build that chemistry on and off the field with these guys, which obviously is good for team building. So the guys are going to protect them. They're going to do everything they want. They can for CJ Stroud to protect them. And so, and again, now that you're adding running backs that can also count as receivers, and all these layers that you're adding, you're literally building this team around them, which is what a successful football team does. And so I don't see a regression either for all of those variables that are just being put there for CJ Stroud. So I don't see a regression for him at all.
Not just that, but having a dependable running back.
Yeah.
Because every time Burrow went down, Mixon had to carry the offense on his back because
Mhm.
There's a difference between Jake Browning and Joe Burrow, and they had to lean a little bit more on Mixon, and now CJ has one more person he could depend on. Like, hey, the passing game isn't working for some odd reason. We can still run the ball.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Let's see. So the Texans this season, they have about 6 primetime games.
6 non-noon games, 4 primetime games.
That's
Per
right, 4
the
primetime.
definition of the league, which is a night game, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I think one's on Netflix, right? One's on Netflix and one's
The
on
Christmas Eve or the Christmas game. Sorry, not Christmas Eve.
Christmas.
So 4 prime times, right? And then the rest were non-noon games.
Yeah.
So how do we, the tech now? Of course, this is without CJ. A lot of the times when the Texans go on prime time, they kind of tend not to be so good, I guess, on in their performance. How do we see this happening this season with the Texans? Do they just completely obliterate that stigma, or do we may see some of those things happen again?
It'll be tough. I mean, between the Lions and the Cowboys and that stretch they have in the middle of the season, the Jets, I think, depends on the weather, depends on if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy long enough into the season to even make it to the game. And then with the Ravens, it's the Ravens. So luckily the Texans are at home. I think that one of the defining stretches of games obviously is going to be between the Ravens, Chiefs, and Dolphins stretch week 15 to 17. And I think that if the Texans come away from that either 1-2 or 2-1, they're doing well. I could see them beating the Ravens because it's going to be in Houston. And then I think that traveling to Arrowhead is a rough stretch. But as far as the primetime games go, I mean, I think that the best case scenario, whether you want to believe it or not, you can be as confident as you want in this team. I think that splitting, if we're talking about all 6 games or even just the 4 primetime games, I think that a split record is the best case scenario, just based on the talent of the teams they're playing.
Okay. All right, Rios.
Yeah, I think they finally break that stigma of Texans are going to Texan in prime time, because we only had one last year and they showed out in it, and then they showed up. It wasn't a prime time game. We always get the 12 o'clock Saturday games for the playoffs.
Yeah,
but I think because as we've seen with CJ Stroud, when the lights are brightest, he plays his best, and I think he's going to really show out on the national spotlight, because I think he knows, like, hey, we got no scheduled primetime games last year. And I'm sure that gets a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as a competitor. Like, so we weren't good enough to get one primetime game. You got to get one flex. Like, bet. I'll show you guys what you guys miss out on.
Yeah, and how the tables have turned. Now it's Bryce Young and the Panthers that don't have a primetime game at all. Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah, Texans Bears week 2. That's right.
That's right. Texans Bears week 2. Exactly.
Excited for that one.
Me too. So we saw CJ again on and off the field, like I said earlier, kind of, hanging out with guys and stuff like that, his teammates, and someone who's not his teammate. Okay, do you foresee Micah Parsons from the Cowboys? It's like that little thing they have going on is kind of fun.
Their buddy world tour.
Yeah. So, do you guys think? Every time we mention that, we always say Micah Parsons, a Texan. Do you see that as a possibility, James?
I mean, based off where he plays,
yeah.
I think that maybe it's a tougher variable, but just based off of chemistry with CJ Stroud and the way they interact, I think that CJ will make that push. And if it makes sense financially, and if he is a fit, then yeah, I mean, I could see it. But like I said, the biggest hurdle, I think, in my opinion, is where he fits. Just because he's a flexible player. He can play. I haven't done enough of a look into where he fits, but just off the top of my head, that's probably the toughest to work through.
Yeah. Rios, do you foresee Micah as a Texan one day?
Future Texan, calling it now.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, James, we're about to end it, but hey, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Albert said, "Don't the Texans play?" That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
There you go. And so that's gonna be fun to watch. I think that one's a purposeful one. Just that one itself, just because I think they want to see what Caleb Williams has coming into the league. They're hoping to see if it's kind of like a CJ Stroud situation.
Worst case scenario, Caleb Williams sucks, but CJ Stroud is still really good. Like in the eyes of the league, scheduling that game, probably why they gave them that primetime slot. I feel.
Yeah, no, agreed. It definitely had to be with that, and because also Caleb Williams is he was a very highly anticipated guy. Like it's a name. He's bringing people to watch that for sure. So I'm excited. It's definitely a proud time to be a Texans fan. And we can easily hold our head up high now and just like look forward to the season. And
we're our gear of pride. Pray for times like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, James, I appreciate you hanging out with us, man. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, man. I appreciate you. Please follow James Roy at James Roy NFL. I believe that's your Twitter account, James. Is that correct? And
yeah, that is, yes.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram, it's N1Texansfan.
Yeah. And for his Instagram, I'm gonna put IG at N1Texansfan.
Yes.
Texans fan. There you go. Just as it comes out right there. N1Texansfan, his IG account. Follow him on his X account at James Roy NFL, and again IG account at Texans IG account N1Texansfan. And of course, don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at JustFans22. We appreciate you guys tuning in. James Roy is such a great guest to have on. Very informative. And again, please go check out his content. Great reference to have around. And I appreciate you having us, man. H-Town, Houston, Texas. Thank you, man. Anything else you got coming on your shows or anything like that, or anything you have coming on in the future?
This week I know we're not going live because I'm gonna be on vacation.
Enjoy.
But throughout the summer we'll be covering whatever's happening, and then once we get into the season, we'll get back into our grind of recaps and previews and the like. Just it's a bit of a lull in the content pipeline right now, but don't worry. We're working on more stuff.
Hey man, I feel you. This is the time where it's like, okay, what are we talking about today? That's not OTAs or minicamp. Right.
Pretty soon we're gonna be talking about cryptic tweets.
Pretty much, yeah.
Stephon Diggs still can't get out of 6'10".
Someone help this man.
Someone help this man. Yeah, man.
Good grief.
Yeah, but James, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I hope to have you on the show again soon, and we'll talk some more Texans, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Appreciate you. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Don't leave just yet. I'm just going to end the show. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us again. Subscribe to our channel at JustFans22. Follow our Instagram account. That's right there underneath James at JustFansPod. And that's going to be it for our show this week. Tune in next. This week, June 5th, we got the one and only Glenn Davis from the Houston Dynamo, the voice of the Houston Dynamo. On our show has called
just the opening act. Glenn Davis is the guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Glenn Davis, who has called 7 World Cups. So hey, that's awesome.
Vamos Dynamo.
Vamos Dynamo. Let's go. All right, man. Thanks, James. Again, appreciate you. That's gonna be it for us this week. For today. Peace.
All right.
Southwest A-League, Texas, throw down here and it's so infectious. We ride for the Houston Astros, Rockets, Dynamo, and them Texans. If you ain't never been down here, but rule number 1, you gon' respect us. Just fans in my speakers, new one drop, they bout to bless us. I might right through the SWAT, playing just fans right through your spot. Look, and I don't know what you thought, but right here, dog, we gon' rep the squad. Got HU, I might fit it, then on my jersey, you